Here we are, vice president. And I'm telling you, we just got one step closer. We get some breaking news to report. Welcome to the show, everyone. Great to have you here. As always, I am Trish Regan, and we are brought to you by our friends over at LegacyPMInvestments.com. Again, LegacyPMInvestments.com. If you're worried about inflation, you definitely want to give them a call. I got a lot to say about inflation. And by the way, not just me, because the former president, has a few things to say about inflation. He's now out warning of a recession. I'm going to give you a sneak peek, and we're going to talk a little more.
And the ships are starting to get hit and hit hard. If that happens, you're going to have tremendous spikes in the price of oil. And if you do that, you're going to have big inflation. He's not going to be able to do anything. But it looks to me like he's trying to lower interest rates for the sake of maybe getting people elected. I don't know.
So you think he's political? He's just going to cut rates to help Biden, you say?
I do. I think he's political, yeah.
So, I mean, the Biden team can say, well, if things are
political, well, there you go. I mean, he said this before. I'll give you a sneak peek of this one, too. We're going to talk about it in a little bit.
There's no, I mean, the inflation's very low.
Oh, Jay Powell might think
No, my biggest threat is the Fed, because the Fed is raising rates too fast, and it's independent, so I don't speak to him, but I'm not happy with what he's doing because it's going too fast, because you looked at the last inflation numbers, they're very low.
But you put him there. I mean,
I did.
you think about Janet Yellen, and she was so dovish.
Can I be honest? Yeah. I'm not blaming anybody. I put him there. And maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong.
And I have a feeling, I'm just saying, because that's going back a few years when he told me he was not happy with Jay Powell at the Federal Reserve. I have a feeling some changes could come. Oh boy, all kinds of changes could come, ladies and gentlemen, should Donald Trump win 2024. But the key is, how the heck does he get there? Right? Because considering everything that's going on right now, I actually think a big part of how he gets there, and I didn't feel this strongly before, but there was this poll that came out. I told you about it yesterday, Quinnipiac's poll. I think a big part of how he gets there comes down to who is the vice presidential pick, because the vice president is going to help close this gap that still exists. And I know plenty of polls say really good things, but I tend to, maybe it's my competitive streak, my competitive edge. I tend to run a little scared on these things. We want to make sure, if we don't want super high taxes, if we don't want really bad, inconsistent energy policy, challenges overseas, more problems at the border, if we want good policy, then you need to make sure that you have a conservative, frankly, in the White House come 2024. And if the Quinnipiac poll is in any way correct, he's going to have some problems. So the list is being narrowed. As we are live right now, I'm looking at all your comments. Keep sending them in. Great to have you here again, as always. I see so many of you have joined the team as well. Team Trish Regan, a.k.a. the Reganites here, as we, on this Friday afternoon, talk about what is the best path forward for Donald Trump in terms of the vice presidency. I'm sorry, Nikki. You know what? I know that you got a lot of money, and I know there's a lot of people, very powerful people, that would like you to succeed, but it's just not happening, okay? Like, we just have to recognize reality at some point. And I think if this party wants to succeed, wants to win in November 24, they have to understand just exactly what they're up against. It's bad what they're up against. You know why? I mean, they're pulling the same old you know what. You got Michael Steele over on MSNBC saying some pretty lewd stuff. You've got, Politico with a big piece today. They were quite proud of this one. It's like, scoop. I'm sorry. This is just gossip. How is this gossip and this rather, questionable language? Like, how is that in any way a story? Well, at Politico, they're really proud of this one because apparently, behind the scenes, President Biden says some really bad stuff about Donald Trump, calling him, some bad words. So, of course, MSNBC goes all in. Of course, Michael still has to get his say. I'm telling you guys, pay attention to this because they are normalizing this. This is part of their goal. What did I tell you in terms of J6, et cetera, just yesterday? You think about how they shot all the footage, and then they brought in one of their own, a former ABC producer, a former Disney-owned ABC producer, to create a quote-unquote mini-series, and they admitted it. By the way, we knew that already. Some of you had said, Trish, we knew that. Of course we knew that. But the point is, they are out there patting themselves on the back, doing their little PBS documentary saying, aren't we great? You know, we created the narrative we wanted. That's what they're doing. They're creating a narrative, okay? So watch this.
I want to dig in, Michael, if I can, to today's reporting from Jonathan Lemire, because it does show a level of personal animosity. Quote, the president has described Trump to longtime friends and close aides as a sick expletive who delights in others' misfortunes, according to 3 people who have heard the president use the profane description. According to one of the people who has spoken with the president, Biden recently said of Trump, what a another expletive guy. Right. Candidates who don't like each other isn't anything new. We can agree on that. But this is very personal and very deep. And I wonder, against an opponent for whom there have never been any boundaries, right, with Donald Trump, could channeling this anger actually help Joe Biden?
Look, there are 2 things to take away from this reporting by Jonathan. The first is this was a conversation he had with private friends, among friends. He wasn't standing at a podium, as we've seen Donald Trump do in recent weeks, and profanely describe others and aspects of this election. So that's one. Number 2, Donald Trump is given credit and props for speaking for MAGA. Well, guess what? Joe Biden speaks for the rest of us. So I don't have a problem with that characterization because I think it's accurate.
Does not have a problem with that characterization.
And so the fact that the president feels this way, I think is a reflection of how a lot of Americans feel. And he speaks for a lot of Americans in that regard. So
and he's also dying in the polls. I knew what you thought I was going to say, right? Oh, I mean, he's been plunging in the polls, except for this Quinnipiac one, which is why this VP thing, which we're going to get to in a second. I just want to see what you guys are saying. A lot of different names out there. I've got some intel that I want to share with you. I do believe that this list has just been narrowed rather considerably, and there are some top contenders. But they're gonna. This is gonna go around for a little bit. So I am curious to hear your thoughts, but I'm going to share with you some of what I'm hearing from some pretty intelligent people that really have thought about this and have thought about how he best has a path to the White House. But you hear Michael Steele, you hear this lady. So this is an ex-Clinton aide, and she went on to MSNBC. Of course, where else do they go? Where else would you go, ladies and gentlemen? But the state news network for Joe Biden, ex-Clinton aide saying some also rather bad things about former President Trump.
Ronna McDaniel getting on air to be like, you need to drop out. There was a move for a resolution, like not even pretending any neutrality. And of course, again, this is the vision that he has for all politics. Like that, yes, I win, heads I win, tails you lose.
Absolutely. You can see how he has reshaped just about every aspect of the electoral system. The voters are different now. Yep. The local officials are different now. The candidates are different now. But almost nowhere is it more stark than in the party apparatus itself. And it's for the exact point that you and Sarah have both made. If you make your litmus test absolute fealty to an unhinged racist weirdo, guess what kind of people you get? That's what's stacked top to bottom now. And at some point, I usually chafe when we're like, Donald Trump is so new and different.
They're normalizing this language. You can call him all the bad words that Biden apparently has been calling them behind closed doors at the White House. Really? All right. It frankly doesn't surprise me. Hence, Politico, woo, way to go on your super stellar reporting on that one. And then you got this lady out there saying he's a racist weirdo. I mean, they're normalizing it. They're normalizing it. And they are desperately trying to convince everybody that he is that bad and he's that awful that you can't possibly vote for him. I mean, it feels very reminiscent, shall we say, of 2020 when we had one guy sitting in his basement, never really saying much other than, oh, I'm such a nice guy. And everybody on the leftist media side of the aisle was just like, bad, 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 bad. We hate him, we hate him, we hate him. And they sold you, frankly, just on this idea. When I say, yeah, I don't mean all of you, but they sold those that voted for Joe Biden on this idea somehow that he was just a nice guy. And they're going to play this playbook all over again. Mark my words. Mark my words. I mean, this is exactly what's happening, which is why you have these ladies on The View talking this kind of you-know-what.
Welcome back. As you know, politics have always been a hot topic for comedians. But former Tonight Show host Jay Leno recently talked to Piers Morgan about why he's dropped political humor from his set list. Take a look.
When I did the Tonight Show, the idea was you made fun of both sides equally, and you get those, Miss Leno, you and your Republican friends, well, Miss Leno, you and your Democratic buddies, and they'd both be angry. And I go, oh, that's good. They both think you're supporting the other guy. Now you've got to take a side, and people are angry if you don't. And I find what I would start to tell a political joke. Well, they want to know the punchline before, is this pro or against it? So I just stopped doing it.
Really?
Because I just want people to come and laugh and have a good time.
Well, so the question is, has America lost its sense of humor about politics?
Well, the job of the comedian is to speak truth to power, which is, that's what Jay was doing, that's what Letterman did, and that's what we did, you and I, when we were doing stand-up. Having said that, I mean, Trump is a perfect target for humor because he's so stupid. And the guy looks at the eclipse and they tell him don't do that, and he does exactly that. It could have blinded him. He believes Frederick Douglass is alive. He has no information at all. He's really an incredible target for humor. Having said that, he is one of the most dangerous people of my lifetime to ever be in the Oval Office. Right. He is probably the most dangerous. So you have somebody and he doesn't have a good sense of humor. No, we all know that at the correspondence dinner, when President Obama made a joke about him,
that was the beginning of the end.
His skin is thinner than his hair. And he got so pissed off that he had to run for president and go after poor Obama, who was born in this country. He is a menace.
Welcome back. As you know, politics have always been a hot topic for comedians.
They're really doing everything they can to say how bad he is. By the way, I'm just reminded as I watch them, I'm wondering if this lady, right, that we just saw,
Rodham McDaniel getting on air to be like, you need to drop out. There was a move for a resolution. Not even pretending any neutrality. And of course, again, this is the vision that he has
I guess
for
Rachel
all
got
politics.
rid of the glasses, right?
Yes, I win, heads I win, tails you lose.
And it kind of
Absolutely. You can see how he has reshaped just about every aspect of the electoral system. The voters are different now. The local officials are different now. The candidates are different now. But almost nowhere is it more stark than in the party apparatus itself. And it's for the exact point that you and Sarah have both made. If you make your litmus test absolute fealty to an unhinged racist weirdo, guess what kind of people
you know what?
get.
I think they might hire you, lady. I think you might actually get a job on The View. But more importantly, for the rest of the world that's not living in TV land and doesn't care about getting a job on The View, but actually cares about maybe having lower energy prices, having a safer border, having a safer world, having a strong economy, etc. You know what? For everybody else out there, there's some other things going on. And we need to remember this, because when I say that they're gonna pick a narrative and they're gonna stay with it, I want you to remember this is all they did in 2016. Hillary Clinton lost. Donald Trump won. But they couldn't let it go. You remember? I remember. It was Russia. He stole the election because of Russia. He's not my president. He's not a legitimate president. Heck, you even had, I've played you this before, you've even had the former president of the United States, none other than Jimmy Carter, say he was not a legitimate president. Remember?
There's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in the election. And I think the interference, although not yet quantified, if fully investigated, would show that Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract, I'll tell you. There's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in the election.
They loved it. They're laughing.
And I think the interference,
the reason they are laughing, think about it. The reason they're laughing is because he just said what they all wanted him to say. He's not a legitimate president. So Jimmy Carter says it. They run with it. They run with it for the next 4 years. The next 4 years. Think about that. I mean, they're trying to say, oh, it was Trump that like stood in the way of. I have a feeling, just a little feeling, the same thing would have happened if the balance had been tipped, even just slightly in Donald Trump's favor. I mean, heck, don't take my word for it. Take Hillary Clinton's. It's exactly what they were planning to do.
Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch and if we are as focused and relentless as the other side is.
Okay.
Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
This is the problem. This is the entire problem with all of them. They are digging in, but only one side gets to dig in. Right? If you're a conservative, you have no say. Heck, you get the nation's largest bank CEO, Jamie Dimon, having to come out of Davos, Switzerland, and tell all those elites at the World Economic Forum, hey, you can't count out half of the country. You can't try and paint half the country as just awful people. And that's exactly what they're doing, and they're trying to normalize it, and they're going to try and intimidate, and they're going to do everything they can to therefore get everybody to vote for the nice guy that, look, I mean, you've seen the news out in the Middle East. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think he's nice, but let's just pretend he was. The nice guy can't get the job done. He just can't. That's the reality of it. But we heard over and over again. I mean, heck, even, here's Donna Brazile talking about how President Trump, when he won, did not win legitimately, that it wasn't a legitimate presidency. You want to talk about who was, quote unquote, undoing democracy. And I know we're Representative Republic, et cetera, but just go with their language for a second because they were doing it to themselves.
Government in our election process.
And Donna, given that all you've said about this hack, do you think Donald Trump's win was legitimate?
I was involved in a close election in 2000, and it was an election where we believed that every vote should count and every voter should matter. At the end of the day, the electors had an obligation to do their job, and George Bush won the election. And Al Gore had the most the most popular votes. Donald Trump used this information in ways to also sow division. I was very disappointed. I'm
going to stop this for a second. Do you see what we call in the television business, the lower third on the bottom of the screen, the writing that says the Russian hack? Did Russian hacking give Trump the White House win? I mean, wow. Like, that's what they were putting out there, almost as though to inspire this idea that somehow they had broken into the Diebold voting machines. I mean, gosh, it's like deja vu, right? Like, I mean, I'm sorry. It's right out of their playbook. And yet they get to do it. Nobody else can. Think about it. Just think about that. It's why, you know what? We got to get serious on the vice president front. I'm telling you. There's a new poll, ladies and gentlemen. There's a new poll out from Quinnipiac. I know all the polls have them ahead, but this one poll does not. This one poll has them behind a touch. And the reason, according to Quinnipiac, and before you dismiss it, they've actually been right on a lot of stuff, including back in 2016. So don't dismiss it. They're saying that the reason they don't think that, according to this latest poll, he's ahead is because of women. Women do not like, apparently, Donald Trump. Now, before I say too much, I will just say this. I don't entirely get it, only because I do think that women are focused on safety, security, financial stability, all of the things that you would think they'd kind of like and appreciate, right? In maybe a Donald Trump. They just don't like the mean tweets. And, I get it. See, maybe I'm not like most women. I'm willing to just drill down and look at policy only. Thank you very much. You do hear me talk sometimes about personality, and I think personality matters. It does. But ultimately, you kind of have me at at tax cuts, which, by the way, did not help. Before you think that it helped, like the wealthy, as the left will try and spin it, those tax cuts that he put in place did not help most wealthy in America, not unless you lived in Texas or in Florida. Most of the wealth is gathered in California and New York. And when he said you can no longer deduct your state taxes from your federal tax income, guess what? People lost a lot of money. It's why you had this exodus out of New York to Florida. It didn't make sense. Why the heck are we going to live in New York and New York City and those miserable winters? And look, I mean, New York City right now, we're going to talk about that later. I mean, what a mess. You want to talk immigration challenges, et cetera, crime challenges, et cetera. New York City's a mess. And so people hightailed it out of there, those that could. So you've got a lot of problems going on right now. I would think a lot of women would, want the economic stability, no inflation, et cetera. But they watch The View, and apparently some of them watch MSNBC, and this sort of cancel culture on steroids where you just can't even think, you can't even entertain the idea that this guy's so bad. He's just so bad that you can't ever look at policy. I mean, that's what's so discouraging about this. It's just a popularity contest of some sort, and they think that they can intimidate a group of people into not liking him. Here's Jimmy Fallon. I want to share it with you, a little comedic clip, talking about how the Democrats think they're going to win this thing by enlisting possibly the help of none other than Taylor Swift. Like the Pentagon actually weighed in on this one today. That cracked me up. The Pentagon came out and said, no, it's not a psycho op. That we have no plans of, having Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl with Joe Biden, where she'll endorse Joe Biden when her boyfriend's team wins the game. I'm going to say this. You know what? I don't think that the game is rigged in any way, shape, or form. Do I think that this was love at first sight and they're going to live happily ever after, and that Taylor Swift is going to all those games because it's pure love and she just adores Travis Kelce? No, I don't. I mean, she's 30 some odd years old, 34, I think. She better get going on the whole, there's a clock thing going on. Anyway, she is a 34-year-old mature professional woman who's used to getting paid zillions of dollars to show up at anything. So if she's not getting paid to show up at those NFL games, then she needs a new agent, because she's there turning over her 16-year-old, 28-year-old demographic handily to the NFL. Here you go, serving it up on a platter. And what, she's not getting anything for that? Seriously? That's just all for true love? I hate to be such a cynic, guys. I mean, I do believe in true love. You know that. Like, that's why I don't like the new version of Snow White. But like within reason, okay? Like, she's a busy girl. Like, she doesn't need to go to every single football game. And I don't think she's, sometimes those things are more fun to watch on TV, frankly, because you can see better. But anyway, who am I to say? I'm just saying that, well, I don't necessarily think that the game is rigged, but is this relationship really as pure as they want us to think? Not so sure about that. Not so sure. But all that said, she's a force. Like, don't discount her. I know that Marsha Blackburn beat her in Tennessee, right? She was coming out campaigning against Marsha, but she's still a force, and Donald Trump needs to recognize that as he considers his vice president. Jimmy Fallon, as I said, weighing in on the issue.
Well, people are talking about this. Former President Trump has been telling people that he's more popular than Taylor Swift and has more committed fans. I'm not sure Trump has more committed fans, but he definitely has more fans who have been committed.
You see, okay? Like, this is what keeps happening. You're a crazy person. Totally crazy if you like Donald Trump. But, if you're a Swiftie, there you go. You're just fine. They're going to ride this all the way to the bank. This is what they're trying to do. And they're going to try to continue appealing to women with lots of emotional stuff. So first, Trump is bad, obviously. We can call him bad names. We can dismiss anybody that might actually like him as just being crazy. That's Jimmy Fallon, right? Not committed fans that have been committed. You see? So they're just going to build on this. They're going to call you crazy because, you think maybe you should keep a little bit more of your money. You're crazy if you actually think that you should apply to be a citizen of the United States of America, and that if you do something bad, you're crazy to think that if somebody who does something bad and is not a citizen should be sent out. I'm looking at this going, who are you people? Like, and by the way, this does not, in my estimation, it doesn't play in Peoria, but they're thinking apparently it does, or it does with women. Maybe women aren't paying attention to the issues, dare I say. Focus on the economy, focus on inflation. I know there was a good jobs report, but I'm going to tell you something. It was like 300 and some odd thousand jobs that they added to the economy. I'm not buying it, only in that you need 300,000 just to keep pace with population growth. So stop doing an hallelujah dance over that one. The left is going to continue portraying Donald Trump as bad, while Joe Biden is somehow this beacon of hope that's going to fix everything and bring us together. And doesn't everybody just want to be brought together? Here is the president at a prayer breakfast this week. Listen.
My prayer for all of you, in my church, we've taken the 22nd Psalm and turned it into a hymn. It says, he will raise you up on eagle's wings and bear you on the breath of dawn and make you to shine like the sun. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. That's sincerely my prayer to all of you. We have really tough differences. We really go at one another. But remember, let's remember who the hell we are. My prayer for all of you, in my church, we've taken the 22nd Psalm and turned it into
Okay. Really? Okay, Joe. So, one, apparently, your church is okay. You get to go to church. The people in South Carolina at the church that you went to visit, they get to go to church, but everybody else, evangelicals, are bad. I'm just saying. So he's giving this whole thing. We got to come together. They got Andrea Bocelli up there singing. You know the guy, Con te partirò. Remember that song? Big one. I think he sang it with, who was a fan of the opera lady, Sarah Brightman. Well, he sang like Amazing Grace or something. And so they got these pictures. They should have gotten that one on TV, right? Of Joe Biden crying, that were plastered all over the media reports, were sort of like tearing up. I won't say he was crying. He's just tearing up as Andrea Bocelli is singing the song. And so I'm like, okay, like this is what they're doing. This is design. This is design, ladies and gentlemen, to cut to the core, to cut to the heart, and to go straight for the women that will not vote for Donald Trump, apparently. So this is why we got to be a little smarter, okay? We got to like actually double down on how to fix this. He's got to double down on how to fix this. And I say this as someone who would like to see him and his policies succeed. But you're not gonna get there if you keep doing the same. And I'm not saying he has to change, because he can't change, all right? Like it's part of why people like him. I'm not saying he has to change, but what about finding someone who can help get him to the finish line? That's why the vice presidency is just so important right now. This is epic. Like it has to be the right person. And we're going to go through the qualities of what make the right person, because it's a unique position. But first, Donald Trump telling a Fox News reporter that, we'll see. He's got somebody in mind, but maybe there's just 25% chance that person's going to be the person. And really, it doesn't really matter anyway. Take a peek. No, maybe it's not working for us. Well, I will just do what they call paraphrase. He told Bret Baier on Fox News the other night. By the way, what's the deal with Fox? They get so many interviews with Trump lately. I guess they're suddenly soured on Nikki Haley, shall we say? Wow, that was a short-lived romance. I guess ratings really do matter. Anyway, Donald Trump told Bret Baier that he's thinking about different people, and he knows who he wants, but only a 25% chance that person's actually going to get it, and that really the vice presidency isn't that big a deal. and that, it's not going to make or break anything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually, I hear him, but I kind of think this year is a little bit different. And this year is different because of the poll that I just cited, and because he's running behind with women, and because this is what they're going to push and this is what they're going to play. So then the question becomes, who's the right one to actually see it through? I know so many of you, and I love Vivek. Let's watch a little clip of him because he's been pretty darn loyal to the president. Plus, I'm just going to tell you, I've interviewed him several times. Smart guy. I knew him before he became the big sort of political powerhouse that he is now. I've always been impressed by his intelligence. Let's listen to him talking a few weeks ago about Colorado.
This is a hollowed out husk of what the country was built on. The basic principle that we, the people, select our leadership, not the unelected elite class in the back of palace halls. That's old world Europe, not the United States. That's why I'm making a pledge today that I will withdraw. I pledge to withdraw from the Colorado GOP primary ballot unless and until Trump's name is restored. And I demand that Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie and Nikki Haley do the same thing, or else these Republicans are simply complicit in this unconstitutional attack on the way we conduct our constitutional republic. I refuse to be complicit in that.
So Ramaswamy really playing up for the loyalty prize, right? Where he's just putting it out there. He's actually going to withdraw himself from the ballot. It didn't really matter because he was out shortly thereafter. So it sounded good though. And they've all been up in New Hampshire, or they were, because Trump very handily won New Hampshire. But they were all up there in a way almost competing, right? Like they were all like very, very out there doing what they could to campaign. And that's good. Like we need a party that's rallying around the presumptive nominee at this point. But who is the person that's actually going to bring in those women? I mean, you can't discount it, right? Like I know you guys like Vivek. I'm going to actually look at some of your comments here. I know you like him, and I like him too. I think he's got a huge political future. I think he can be a big part of the Republican Party going forward. But the reality remains it's not going to bridge the gap with women. I'm not saying this as a woman, but I mean, I am. I am a woman. And I just don't necessarily think maybe maybe I should be more touchy-feely. I am just a policy dork and wonk who cares about taxes and cares about the border and cares about the economy and international relations and all these subjects that, maybe some people don't find as interesting and as entertaining as I do. So there you go. But a lot of women are just saying, okay, well, we don't like him. We just don't like him. And we don't like some of the things that he's tweeted and said. And, when we watch The View, the ladies on The View don't like him, et cetera, et cetera. So how does he change that image? Like, how does he do that? I think that the vice presidency is going to be the key. I think he has got to go with a woman. He's got to actually pick a woman that other women like. Now, there is a challenge, right? Think about it. A lot of women did not come out to vote for Nikki Haley. I know we've talked about Nikki, and everyone's like, no, because she's a traitor and this and that, and she doesn't like him, But let me just be simple. Like, I don't know as women like her enough. I was thinking a lot about this last night, y'all, and I was just like, okay, this is getting serious. Because if he has this big a deficit, and it's enough that it's showing up in the polls right now, I know that it's an outlier, but Quinnipiac I'm not going to dismiss. So that means, as much as many of you like Vivek, as much as we all like Dr. Ben Carson, although I saw some of the energy comments, as long as we like, and we do, Tim Scott is just wonderful, right? And he just got engaged. Congratulations to him. Byron Donalds, who's been on the show, fantastic guy, smart. How do we get women? Like, why is Joe getting the women? He's not getting them with Kamala, I guarantee you. So that's the question, right? This is the conundrum. So I was talking to some sources last night, and the list has grown more narrow. There are definitely some people on that short list from what I'm hearing. And one of the things that is being considered, one of the things that is being looked at is this, in fact, this female deficit, right? You've got to get the women over, and he's not really going to be the one to do it, but he could have a surrogate that does so. Kind of like Mike Pence was with the evangelicals. A lot of people were like, well, maybe the evangelicals won't really go for him because they won't really buy it. And then he gets Mike Pence, who's like Mr. Evangelical, and all the evangelicals are like, yeah, I thought I liked Trump, and now I really like him because he's got Pence. So you want those women that are maybe just sort of in the middle, feeling independent, maybe on the cusp of voting for Biden. You got to bring them in. And the way that you do that is with a woman that they like and that they can relate to. So that is a hard thing to find. That's a hard thing to pick. All right. And women are tough on other women. I'm just going to say it. Look, I'm a woman. I can say this. I've seen it. I'm not like that. I honestly, I had a lot of young, beautiful women that would come on my show, and older women and younger, whatever. And they were like, you're the only woman here at this network that seems to, I think Maria's cool about this too, that puts other women on. Because I think that just a lot of people feel very, they get sharp elbows, this, that, and the other. I don't think that way, but I approach this knowing that that is a reality. To me, I see an attractive woman and I don't think less of her. I'm like, oh, let me know more about her. But a lot of women might see somebody who is attractive as a little bit of a threat. I'm just being a realist. We're just, we're among friends here, right? We're among friends. Leslie, I know, is my friend. Good to see you. Dawn, I know, is my friend, but Leslie, am I not right? Like, women can be tough on other women. It's just the reality of it. I don't really get it, but it is the world in which we live. So let's start with that premise and let's kind of go through the list here. Some of you talk about Tulsi. Yeah, I see that, Jonathan. Tulsi Gabbard, compare her to Kamala Harris. Well, I'll take Tulsi any day over Kamala Harris. Thank you very much. And I think that she's an interesting person, and she's sort of her own person, if you would, which is really important. She is kind of cool, right? Like, she kind of, just is likable. She seems very much to have her own conviction. She was in the military. She's certainly taken her share of from the likes of the Clintons. Think about Hillary Clinton's campaign and Hillary coming out and accusing her of being a Russian spy, for goodness sakes. Somebody who is in our armed services, they're accusing of being a Russian spy. I mean, you just got to remember how bad this can get. Really bad this can get. So if Tulsi teams up with Trump, by the way, keep in mind, they're gonna attack anyone, right? So we just have to weigh these odds. If Tulsi goes and teams up with Trump, what would that mean for Donald Trump? They're going to say, oh, he's a Russian spy, and now he's got the Russian spy as vice president. I don't think it's a disqualifier. What might be more challenging is, and it might be fine, one of the issues as well is she really conservative enough? And so does it give any conservatives pause? I do think that he's got his base, and that base is not going anywhere. So the idea here is expansion. Can Tulsi Gabbard expand the base? Yeah, I guess. But she's more closely identified with the Democrats than perhaps, and Don agrees with me. Hawaiian Democrat, you're being more harsh than me. But Tulsi is on a list. I wouldn't call it the short list right now. That's in part why I start with her. There's some others out there. Kari Lake. I know you guys love Kari Lake, but that means more base, right? You're bringing in more of the base, which you already have. So you don't need, let's just be, again, we're all among friends here. Like, do you need more base? No. I mean, if you're going to get more base, then just go get Vivek, because Vivek is super smart. And heck, he should certainly get a cabinet position. The guy is really smart, and he's built 2 big businesses and has tremendous degrees in this, that, and the other. So, like, if you need more base, is it really Kari Lake? Is she going to bring in women? I don't think she will. And the other thing you got to consider about all this is that Kari Lake is a very big personality. And from one big personality to another, I can tell you, it's hard to have all of that oxygen being taken up in one room. So while she might be great at a rally for Donald Trump, does he really want to be in the office with her every day? Probably not. I mean, this is why he and Mike Pence actually worked pretty well together up until the end. So Tulsi, a cabinet post, that makes sense, Don. That makes sense. But does she actually make it to the vice presidency? I don't think so. I see Kayleigh McEnany on the list. David, somebody was talking to me about that just last night. Beautiful girl. Absolutely beautiful girl. Went to Harvard. So very smart, whatever you think about Harvard. Is married to a professional baseball player. And obviously has had a working history with Trump. He doesn't like her so much these days. Remember, he came out and was very angry about some of the things that she was saying. And the question becomes, is she going to win with women? She's a mom, so there's a plus. She's had her share of health concerns or fears, so again, relatable. But she's awfully darn pretty. So I just bring that up, we're again among friends. I would hate to think that that's ever a reason for a problem. I don't think it should be, but it's something that, is she smart enough? Does she have enough experience? I think she's probably smart enough. I don't know if she has enough experience. So you've got to think about everyday soccer moms at home. Who do they want? I don't know, is Kayleigh, they like her. I like her, by the way. I've known her for many years. I love her. She's a really terrific person. And she's very serious about religion. It's important to her. And I respect that. And she's a mom and all of those things. Interesting, but do you run the risk that, it's this Harvard gorgeous girl in the stilettos? I don't know. She was a great press secretary, though. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's keep going, guys. So we've got Tulsi, Kari, Kayleigh, Marsha Blackburn. You know what? She's kind of a dark horse in all this. Marsha Blackburn's beaten Taylor Swift before. She's a grandmother, so maybe younger women might look up to her a little bit. Maybe middle-aged women won't be threatened by her. Grandmothers might also look up to her because she's kind of got it going on. She's super smart. Again, she's been on the show many times. I've known Senator Blackburn for many years, and she is definitely someone who's very loyal to Donald Trump. So that loyalty matters too. Don't forget. So Marsha Blackburn, I think you could probably put her on the short list column. I would say Tulsi, Kari, Kayleigh we can kind of put in the middle, but Tulsi and Kari, they're probably going over there way on the other side of things. Meaning it's unlikely. And there's more. Kristi Noem, right, out in South Dakota. Possibility. She's a governor. She would do a good job at sort of kind of taking a step back, if you would, right? And letting Donald Trump be center stage. And oh my gosh, Charles, don't give it away. I'm going to hold off on that because he's making some comments. I actually have a lot to say about that. I'm just reading some of your comments. And Charles Thornton is one of our wonderful sponsors, by the way. I haven't gotten to my interview with Donald Trump and what he said about the Fed, as well as Maria Bartiromo's interview, what he said today. We're going to get there, and we're going to talk about gold. But I do think that the governor of South Dakota probably goes in that middle spot. Like, I don't know as I'm going to count her out, but I also, she's fine. She feels a little Mike Pence-like, and she is a little bit, out of central casting, an attractive woman, a governor. She speaks in a very sort of direct, intelligent sounding way, and she's been loyal, right? So that's all sort of check marks in the positive box. Women being women, will they love her? Will they like her? Will they try and, find flaws and alleged flaws in her personal life? I don't know. But those are just the realities that, if you're on the opposition research team, these are some of the things you look at. And if you're in some kind of polling business where it's like, okay, what resonates, what really works. So Kristi, I think you can put her in that middle column. Nikki Haley, yesterday we were talking about this, and you guys are like, no, and I'm like, but did you see the Quinnipiac poll, right? Like, here's the thing. I thought about it again last night, and I'm like, wait a second. And I looked at the polling data out of New Hampshire, which, by the way, was like mainly independents, Democrats that were registered as independents, but have every intention of voting for Biden, that just went out to vote in New Hampshire. But what was amazing to me is she didn't poll better with women. And I'm like, why not? Right? Don't women like other women or no? Maybe not, right? So you've got to have the right woman. This is why it's so hard. And, maybe it's unfair and this, that, and the other. But she didn't do as well with women as well as she should have. So I think that combined with her attacks on Trump make it sort of impossible for her. I mean, look, Trump is not Biden. Remember Biden? He was like taking Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris destroyed him on live television, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely, positively destroyed him at that Democrat debate. Didn't help her at all, by the way. Her numbers went right down because she looked like the meanie I think that she probably is. Right? So Kamala did all that, and Joe went back and said, well, what do you think? Match made in heaven, right? So Kamala and Joe, that's a special union. I don't see Trump doing that in light of some of the things that Nikki has said. Okay, so loyalty matters. By the way, loyalty matters, I think, to people that support Donald Trump. They don't want somebody who seems like she's not really on the team. And if I'm Trump, I'm like, oh, okay, like I better have a food taster in the White House because you never know. So, we've talked about Tucker Carlson in the past. I'm talking about the ladies right now, right? So Tucker, Tim Scott, if you're just joining us right now on the live edition of the show, we're going through who the possibilities on the vice president shortlist are. And I have had some interesting conversations with people. And I think there's a recognition that they need to somehow close this gap with women. And Trump's not going to be the one to do it. So he needs some kind of surrogate, similar to Mike Pence having that ability to really connect and relate with evangelicals back in 2016. So who is the woman that does that right now? It's not going to be... Tucker's a guy. It's not going to be Tucker. And by the way, having somebody like Tucker, I think is great. Like he's an interesting character. He's got interesting ideas. He would probably do very, very well and be very helpful for the country. But you're just doubling down on what you've already got in terms of the male constituency. You've already got the base. So I want to make sure I don't leave anyone out before I go to the one that I really think might be a top contender. Elise Stefanik. I see, Constantine, you're talking about Elise, and I think that she is for sure there on a relative short list. I think Elise Stefanik impressed everyone with how she went after the president of Harvard University, Claudine Gay. She showed herself to be very direct, very smart. In the past, she's been very anti-Trump, so that could come back to haunt her. But she's clearly been very out front, is supportive of him, has already said that she would welcome any role in the administration. She is from New York. She's young. She might be able to help him, but I think I know somebody, if she wants it. I think I know somebody who might even be able to do this a little bit better. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders, actually, is somebody you should watch very, very carefully right now. Certainly loyal to Trump, has the experience as a governor herself, has been around politics her whole life, has the benefit of dad understanding how a lot of this works, Mike Huckabee, and is actually respected by a lot of members of the media. I mean, they will attack her a zillion different ways. You know that. But I think a lot of members of the media still ultimately respect her because they felt like she was a straight shooter in all those press conferences. And she's kind of no frills, right? She's sort of like America's sweetheart. And I bring that up because she's an attractive woman, but women aren't going to feel like, oh, she's too much, or she's got too many highlights in her hair or anything like that. I actually think she could actually be a very plausible, excellent candidate for him. I mean, I rarely go out on these limbs. I did actually say that about Mike Pence too, because I felt back in 2015 into 16, Mike Pence would be the perfect vice president. They have a great relationship, Sarah Huckabee Sanders and President Trump. They work well together. He listens to her and she listens to him. It's like a mutually respectful relationship. And I think Americans would really respond to her in a very, very excited way. She's warm, she's intelligent, and relatable. Okay, like this is me. I'm putting my television hat on now, but like relatable stuff actually does kind of matter. I know. I mean, there's certainly some other options out there, and I'm hearing about a woman out of Alabama that they're talking about as well, a young politician there. It could be anyone. Don't forget McCain came out of nowhere with Sarah Palin. How amazing was that? Like, no, I remember my husband and I were in Switzerland at the time. We were hiking. It was summertime. And it comes across, it probably was my BlackBerry back then. That was back in the day. And I'm like, Sarah Palin? Who the heck is Sarah Palin? And at the time I worked at CNBC, Maria Bartiromo was there, and she had just been up doing a story on oil in Alaska. And so I was good friends with her and her producers, and they were like, whoa, yes. They were like, wow, because like they had the only footage of Sarah Palin. Nobody even knew who she was. It was also kind of a different day and age, right? Before sort of the onset of social media, et cetera. So there could be a dark horse waiting in the wings, certainly. And that might happen. But I mean, I'm just trying to think about, if you want conservative policies come 2024, who is the person that's going to get you there? Who's going to close that gap? I think it's got to be a woman that other women like. So we'll see. Maybe she wants it. Maybe she doesn't. That's a whole other thing, right? I mean, again, you guys are saying Tucker would be great. Listen, Tucker would be phenomenal. Vivek would be phenomenal. Tim Scott would be phenomenal. Byron Donalds would be phenomenal. All of them. By the way, Tulsi, Kari, Kayleigh, like Kristi, you have a ton of people that are uber qualified. And you know what? That's good news, right? Hey, let's be happy that people actually want to be in the business of politics. Because, it's not a fun business, shall we say. And it's pretty dicey. Elise Stefanik, I mean, wow, she's rolling the dice, because if he doesn't win, think about the cancel culture on steroids coming for her. I mean, it's a tough, nasty world out there. I've got a lot more. I want to show you a portion of my interview with Donald Trump. I want to show you what he's saying about the markets today. We have a lot of stuff that we need to get to. Let's keep the conversation on the chat, though. I'm curious other thoughts. I mean, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, anybody say, Charles, I know you agree with me. Great minds, but maybe I just know you too well. I don't know. Like I do think that she's one to keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it. Look, we got a lot going on. We got a lot of problems right now in this country. You have only to look at the challenges at our border. I don't know if you guys saw this story. I haven't played the tape. I just don't like it because it's not something you really want to see. It's extremely sad, but I'm sure you can find it online, of some police officers being beaten by some migrants, undocumented immigrants in the city of New York. And you know what? It's creating a big uproar, because you get a Democrat governor who's finally like, okay, enough. You know what? We're sick of this peace and love and just kumbaya. And, we're going to just love everyone and hope for the best. Like, reality sets in. So I want you to listen to Governor Kathy Hochul, who's telling it like it is. Good for her.
Get them all and send them back. You don't touch our police officers. You don't touch anybody. Thank you, everybody.
Wow.
Get them all.
I mean, that's something to say. It's something to say because, again, she's a Democrat. You know what they're doing to Eric Adams because he's so mad about everything and about immigration and what they're having to do with all the migrants in New York City and close down a school for a day because you got a storm coming and you got to house people. It's something like 140,000 now that they have of migrants in New York City. And then when they commit crimes, you can't do anything about it. Well, Kathy Hochul, she's like, I don't think so. This is ridiculous. But you know what? There's a point of view on the other side that doesn't want to hear her.
I rise in strong opposition to H.R. 6976. Once again, the majority is wasting our time by putting forward a piece of legislation that has zero chance of becoming law and that is extraordinarily broad. No one condones driving under the influence. We should do everything we can to prevent people from getting behind the wheel while intoxicated. But this bill, designed to scapegoat and denigrate immigrants, will not solve the serious problem of DUIs. Public safety threats, including those who have been convicted of serious DUI offenses, are already inadmissible and removable under the Immigration and Nationality Act.
Okay, so basically what she's telling you is
would not
if somebody,
change or enhance that.
I'm going to jump
under
in.
the
What
INA.
she's saying is if somebody is convicted of having a DUI and it turns out they're an undocumented migrant, well, the House would like to send them back home. And she's saying, no, you can't do that. Like, you can't penalize them like that. It's unbelievable to me. And you know what? Look, state after state is coming out saying this isn't working for us. I mean, you have the city of Denver, the Democrat mayor in Denver saying, we can't handle this. You've got the Massachusetts governor. I was telling you about her. She grew up in my hometown. My sister went to high school with her. Maura Healey down in Massachusetts saying they don't have a choice. I mean, she was practically crying on the local news saying they don't have a choice. It's killing her. She has to close the Roxbury Community Center. And it's not right because kids in Roxbury deserve access to that community center. You know what? They absolutely do. And I'll tell you this, Massachusetts residents, they've had it. They're tired. The people in Roxbury are like, what the heck is going on?
Don't get me wrong. It's great that they want to help the immigrants. But what about the Americans that are already here? What about the people that are already here that don't have homes, that don't have jobs, that are sleeping on the street already? Now it's going to destroy our community more and mess our children up more. Why are they not helping the people here first?
Yeah, I mean, good question. Good question. Don't the people in America matter? Look at this guy. I want you to see him. He's a resident of Roxbury, and he's outside the community center, and there are these police officers there, and they're not letting him go in because it's just for the undocumented migrants. And he's like, what the heck? You know, I'm going to yell at you because I can yell, and this is where I live, and I should be able to go in. Is that not coming through for us? We may be having what you call a good old-fashioned technical failure, but that's all right. We'll keep moving here. Look, it's unfortunate, but this is what bad policy actually results in, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, this is what happens. And you just can't ignore policy and hope and pray that somehow it's just going to work out okay. You're going to have problems, and we're continuing to have problems. And voters are upset, like the Massachusetts resident you just saw speaking on local television there in the Boston area. It's not right, and it's got to change. Then you got to ask yourself this, okay? Aside from just populations not being able to handle it, what about the reality of our national security? Does anybody care about our national security? I mean, I saw this particular scene that was happening at the border, and it caused me some concern. Because look at everybody there coming into California from our border, and they're like, what this is big. What the heck are we doing with so many from China right now? It doesn't even make any sense that we're not going to try and enforce this. And they haven't tried to enforce it. You heard the woman, the representative say, no, we can't send them home, we can't send them home. We are supposed to be so welcoming. You know, that's what the Statue of Liberty is all about. Well, listen, we can be welcoming, we don't have to be sensitive. All right, let's actually have something that's a real policy where we recruit. Hey, we need nurses, let's go find nurses. We need doctors, we find doctors. We need tech people, we find tech people. And we need workers, we can find workers. Look, I'm not against bringing people here, but you got to be thoughtful about the process. Every other country is. Every single other country except us. Look, we are a nation of immigrants. That's the reality. We pride ourselves on that. I want to give a short and quick plug, both for myself and for a wonderful podcast that I have discovered. One of my friends actually is the producer of it. It's called Our American Stories with Lee Habib. And it's just fantastic. I want you to go and do this for me. It's not a political show. It's just great stories about great Americans. You hear some of these struggles that people have been through. It celebrates what we are as Americans, including our immigrant roots and our capitalist roots and the meritocracy roots that have made us number one superpower in the world. Let's hope we can hang on to it, right? Well, we started this podcast because he's like, we need to tell our stories, our American stories. And so it's beautiful. It's just really, I mean, there's like 4 installments a day. So it's like, it's terrific. If you're on a road trip or something, it's really good because you're going to learn a lot. And I promise you, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel better about this country, and you're going to remember what we're really fighting for here. And that's to preserve this opportunity and to preserve our freedom for the next generation. So go to wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to the Trish Regan Show. By the way, we keep going up in the numbers. I keep seeing that. So thank you for that. I can tell you're doing it. Go and get the Trish Regan Show, but go get Our American Stories. Our stories, Our American Stories. Okay, I got to move on to East Palestine, Ohio. For goodness sakes, what's going on in East Palestine? Apparently, the president thinks if he goes and takes a little breeze through East Palestine, maybe the SEO on the computer will pick it up like he's actually been to Palestine. I don't know. But for some reason, a year after the fact, he's suddenly interested in going. I mean, don't forget, remember the horrible train derailment and the toxic mess that was a result of that train derailment? And Biden wouldn't go? It was a strange. Donald Trump went? Who's no longer president? And Biden wouldn't go. He wound up sending, little Pete down there, Mayor Pete, who, by the way, is like nowhere to be found these days. I mean, where is he in the news cycle? You get all kinds of Boeing problems with these airplanes. I don't see Mayor Pete. And now Biden has decided he's going to go to East Palestine, Ohio. Again, way after the fact. You got to see this exchange here from Peter Doocy and Karine Jean-Pierre. She's the press secretary at the White House right now. And they're kind of going back and forth because Peter's like, well, why hasn't he been? Why hasn't he been? And she's like, oh, he'll go. This is just a couple weeks ago, or it's not even, like maybe a couple days ago. Let me play this for you.
The mayor of East Palestine told one of our White House producers, Pat Ward, earlier this month that his preference at this point, after a year, would be for President Biden. This is a quote. He said the best time for him to come would be February of 2025 when he is on his book tour. And the mayor there, Trent Conaway, also said, we have heard nothing from the administration about a visit. He also said, I don't know what he would do here. Now, a couple months ago, while we were waiting for this announcement, we asked Karine Jean-Pierre about the holdup.
Just one more. The president said over the long weekend that he hasn't had the occasion to go to East Palestine. I just haven't been able to break. The derailment was on February 3rd.
The president will go to East Palestine. He promised that he would, and he will. You saw him.
So he was not on a break when he was in Lake Tahoe?
I will say this again. The president is going to go to East Palestine, as he has said that he is committed to do. You saw him.
Wow.
Time since then, many trips to Delaware. There was a Christmas week in St. Croix. There was time at Camp David. But the flight to Cleveland, Ohio, which is less than an hour on Air Force One, was too much to take a break for the president until now. Again, we have no idea why this announcement is happening now, except for the fact that Ohio is a battleground state in the election year that we are now in. The mayor of East Palestine told one of our White House producers, Pat Ward, earlier.
Oh, boy. You know what? I'm going to die laughing here. You just hit the nail on the head, Peter. That's exactly it. I mean, why else do you think he's going to East Palestine, Ohio? He should have gone there a year ago, and he didn't because it wasn't important a year ago. Well, guess what? Now it's important. You know, people, though, I'll tell you, they're salt of the earth there in Ohio, and they don't forget things like this. So yeah, you know, Biden, you may be down in the polls, but I don't think this is going to turn it around. The mayor of East Palestine, you heard Peter cite him. He weighed in on this, and he said that yeah, he did invite him actually. He didn't actually give any color on just exactly what he apparently told Peter's producer, but I want you to watch this clip, this interview with the mayor of East Palestine, Ohio, basically saying, you know what? We invited him because we wanted to get some attention. We couldn't get his attention. We got Donald Trump's attention. We could not get Biden's. Think about that.
Yeah, Chris, for the most part, yeah, most of the people are fine. There are still some lingering health questions, and that's why the invitation was put out to him. I don't, you know, I didn't have to invite President Trump to come, but you know, I felt that, you know, I had to, you know, send out a personal invitation to President Biden to come so we can get some of these answers to some of these lingering health concerns. Yeah, Chris, for the most part, yeah, most of the people are fine.
Pretty sad to think about. Really, quite sad to think about that it's that calculated and it's that political. We have some breaking news to get to you right now. We have just learned just moments ago the U.S. has begun its Middle East airstrikes in response to the death of 3 soldiers. This is just breaking right now, a developing story. The strikes, as I said, are in response to the death of 3 U.S. service members last Sunday on a U.S. base in Jordan. Really difficult to see right now that we are in such a challenged place on a global level. For sure, this is truly not where we would want to be, but we have, again, as I just want to report this to you, just coming in at this moment, we have begun these retaliatory strikes in the Middle East. I'll tell you, it feels like almost what Iran wanted in some way, dare I say. I mean, they greenlit this attack on Gaza, and then we're stuck in this position where we can't back our allies fully because there are certain members of Congress that and by the way, Harvard University student body and other Ivy League student bodies that take issue with Israel. And so then the president starts to back off. He doesn't really come out strong. And I'll tell you, we are where we are right now because it matters. It does matter who's in charge. And we don't really have, dare I say, the team that we need in a moment like this. We just don't. We absolutely don't. You know, I think back to Donald Trump and his presidency and all the mean tweets, but we had some security. We had some, I think, sense of his unwillingness to get us into a massive crisis. 8 to 12 retaliatory airstrikes in Syria and Iraq. We are learning. I will say this. I have questioned quite frequently the decisions and the methodology of our current Secretary of State. And I kind of almost, dare I say, almost expect it from Biden that he's not very good at these things. He's just the politician, but you're supposed to have people behind the scenes that are very good. It's why in many ways I think that the Trump economy did well, and it was because he had really strong people behind the scenes that were making educated choices and presenting him with good options. He also kind of had a sixth sense for the economy, being somebody who came from the business world. But on this military front, it's very strange to me because it used to be the left that was like the party of sort of anti-war. And then there's been this very seismic shift, it feels like. And I feel like the Republicans are cautioning here. Not all of them, by the way, not all of them. But they're like, okay, what are we doing? Now, I think you gotta stand strong. But you never should have been in this place in the first place, right? Like, let's own up to that. I have some sound I want to play for you because this is really, let's see if I have it. I'm going to play this for you. Some of you may have seen it yesterday. John McCain saying back in 2014 on the House floor that he absolutely could not, in good conscience, vote for Anthony Blinken as Deputy Secretary of State under Barack Obama because Anthony Blinken, in his view, was actually very dangerous for America. In fact, that's exactly how it feels right now. McCain in 2014 cited specifically Blinken's desire to get out of Afghanistan. And he said the way he's planning this, the way he wants to do this, it's not going to work out well. I do want to just drop in. Let's look at some sound here from Joe Biden, if we can, of him commenting on the deaths. I think my computer has frozen, so we'll save that. But indeed, McCain knew something. He knew something, and he tried to warn everyone. Regardless of what you think of McCain, I'll tell you, he got this one right. Hang on. You know what? We are now hearing that Fox News, which was the first to report this, although I thought AP did as well. But perhaps it was only Fox News. They are now retracting their statement, which is massive. Okay, that is, if they're retracting the statement, wow, that is one heck of a thing to get wrong, ladies and gentlemen. This is how you know we're live. This is a real show. We are live in real time, because that is one heck of a thing. You know, they're a news organization with thousands and thousands of employees all over the world. And they are out there, including employees in the Middle East, trying to actually get this information to you. It's quite odd that they're now retracting their statement. Having worked there, I would at least say that the news division, like the straight news division, and you get opinion, this, that, and the other, they try to be right on these things. And this is kind of stunning and shocking to me that they would get something as big as this wrong. So I want to just say that, and we'll continue watching this story. I mean, that's kind of appalling. But if that is the case, again, these reports were just coming in courtesy of Fox News, and they may have gotten that one wrong. I mean, wow. I don't like the sound of that. All right, so let's move on, because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Gavin Newsom and Target. Oh my gosh, like Target, they're locking everything up at Target right now. Have you noticed that? Like you go to the perfume section or the certain, whatever cosmetic section, and like things are locked up. Why are they locking up? Oh, they have to. They have to lock things up because the stealing is out of control. Well, why would so many people be stealing from Target right now, you ask? It's a logical question. It's a fair one to ask, and I'll tell you why. It's because nobody goes after anybody. Everybody's afraid. I mean, you have now store after store after store, from Whole Foods to Target to hotels in San Francisco just pulling up shop. They're like leaving empty buildings. They don't want to be in San Francisco because they can't protect their customers, their merchandise, their inventory, or their employees. And so Target is another example of this. Target is now under fire from shareholders who are saying, wait a second, like what's going on with the inventory levels? What's going on with theft? And you hear the CEO complaining because they're losing a ton of money to theft, and they have been, but it's grown extraordinarily egregious in recent years. Well, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, where Target has a lot of problems, he wants you to know, you know what? It's not his fault. Not his fault. Doesn't have anything to do. He's got great laws on crime. Really great laws, Gavin, on crime. I want you to see this. He sat down for this Zoom meeting the other day, and he started telling this story about when he was in a Target recently. And the Target employee, he and like this employee witnessed theft. Like somebody was shoplifting. And he's like, aren't you going to do anything about it? And she's like, I can't. Reality bites, doesn't it, Gavin? He was shocked. He's angry with her. He actually wanted to speak to her manager. She didn't know he was governor, by the way. Take a look.
Checking out, the woman says, oh, he's just walking out. He didn't pay for that. I said, well, why are you stopping him? She goes, oh, the governor. I swear to God, true story. Oh, my mom's great. The governor lowered the threshold. There's no accountability. I said, that's just not true. And I said, we have the 10th toughest, $950, the 10th toughest in America. She doesn't even know what I was talking about. By the way, it's the 10th toughest in America. Look it up. No one gives a damn about that. And I said, it's just not true. There's still stop. They said, well, we don't stop them because of the governor. And then she goes, She looks at me twice and then she freaks out. She calls everyone over, wants to take photos. I'm like, no, I'm not taking a photo. We're having a conversation. Where's your manager? How are you blaming the governor? And it was, $380 later. And I was like, why am I spending $380? Everyone can walk the hell right out.
Wow. He wants to speak to her manager. Like she's going to be in trouble now, right? Because she thinks that the governor doesn't want them going after. Thanks to the laws he's put in place. He's trying to say, no, my laws are great. You know what? If your laws were great, you wouldn't have these problems. You just wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't have the CEO of Target coming out and saying that we got a huge issue with theft. But that's what they're saying. I sat down a short time ago to talk with Jerry Storch. He's the former vice chairman of Target. So big job. And he knows the company very well. He knows retail very well. This is his background. And Jerry was like, you know what? Like, it's not just the onesies, right? That they've got the kids' onesies, remember? The rainbow onesies. It's not just that that's an issue for Target. They've got inventory problems. They got theft problems. They got messy aisles. They got buy one, get one free, which we never did when we were at Target. I was interested to hear that. But just hear his commentary for a second, because this is very interesting. This is the former vice chairman of Target.
And so there's nothing wrong with trying to expand your audience. Just think about how you're doing that. And so what they did in the process was they offended their core audience. It appears a very way that has had more legs than I think a lot of people thought it might. It continues to this day. So that was a fundamental sort of almost, I hate to use it, it's almost like marketing malpractice. They weren't thoughtful about how they were going after their segments and how to do that overall. In the case of Target, Target has been offering Pride merchandise for a very long time and has been, like many retailers, an active supporter of Pride Month. And it's not just Target. Walmart has a big Pride display. So does Kohl's. So does Macy's. So does Penny's. Almost every retailer does this, and Target's been doing it for a long time. It feels like in this case, maybe they didn't vet the products quite as carefully as they had in the past, or as other retailers are doing, just to make sure they understood what was offensive to people and what wasn't. When you go there,
do they typically vet them? I mean, I'm curious about that. Like, what would be the process? When you were there,
you could vet every product. We have line reviews where you go through every product and you talk about them. And this, not just in this area, it could be in almost any area. You could say, well, that's a little too much. You went too far with that one. Where people are always trying to push the boundaries of what's in and what's out. And we make decisions about this in all kinds of areas, not just in this area, but whether related to anything that could potentially be controversial. You think through it, whether or not it's really worth it, because we want to love everybody. You have love for people on sort of on all sides of an issue, people everywhere, and so you want to show that in what you do. So you think about both the people you're trying to support as well as people that might be offended by what you're trying to do.
And then maybe you should bring your inventory people in and say, well, wait a second, like how many of these are we really going to sell?
Yeah, because they're not selling as many, shall we say, rainbow onesies as they might have anticipated. Just saying. But the crime thing is a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. And the fact that the governor of California doesn't get that, and he actually thinks that his rules are working, I mean, buddy, proof is in the pudding. Gavin Newsom, wake up and smell the coffee. Everyone is leaving your state. Everyone that can. Nobody wants, it's like, it's like living up to its name, Hotel California. You go there, well, you can check out. That's the beauty of living in the country we live in. They've tried to put in legislation that would prevent you from doing so. I used to live in California. They followed me all the way to New York. They kept asking me, like for years, they didn't believe I lived in New York. I'm like, turn on the TV, guys, right? I live in New York now, not California. Thank goodness. Not like New York was any panacea, but I mean, you got to say it's all relative, right? California is really whacked out, and it was whacked out even back then. So, look, he has not done a good job. And it reflects poorly on the national stage. Does he have a big future in the Democrat Party? I still think he does. Because, he looks good. He sounds good. He talks a good game. He sounds like he's caring. But how caring are you really when people can't get jobs anymore at Target, when people can't shop at Target, and when people can't actually go and buy their stuff at Target? I mean, think about this Presley woman. She just came out. Let me see if I can show you this one. We're having a few technical difficulties, so bear with me. Drew is off today enjoying his long weekend. So I'm live. I'm the live control room at this hour. So I do want to see if I can try and play you this, because it's really crazy what she was saying. Let me see. Hang on 1 second. Actually, while I look for this, let's see if we can listen to Jerry again for a second.
And so there's nothing wrong with trying to expand your audience. Just think about how you're doing that. And so what they did in the process was they offended their core audience. You know, it appears a very way that has had more legs than I think a lot of people thought it might. You know, it continues to this day. So that was a fundamental sort of almost, I hate to use it, it's almost like marketing malpractice. You know, they weren't thoughtful about how they were going after their segments and how to do that overall. In the case of Target, Target has been offering Pride merchandise for a very long time, and has been, like many retailers, an active supporter of Pride Month. And it's not just Target. Walmart has a big Pride display. So does Kohl's. So does Macy's. So does Penny's. Almost every retailer does this, and Target's been doing it for a long time. It feels like in this case, maybe they didn't vet the products quite as carefully as they had in the past, or as other retailers are doing, just to make sure they understood what was offensive.
Yeah, you can say that again. They just, Target is full of problems, and we haven't even talked about the Stanley Cups. You've seen that footage. I think I showed that to you on my Shorts feed. Unbelievable. And then they're firing employees because, you can't buy 2 Stanley cups, mugs, whatever the heck they are. I don't even have any interest in them. Do you? I mean, this is again, my kids are like, but you're a mom. Like, you're supposed to know this. This is really big in Momville. I'm like, okay, maybe this is why I don't understand the gender gap in the voting contingency right now. I'm trying to, though. That's why I'm so clued into this VP thing. Let me show you Elisa Presley right here. Take a look.
Mr. Speaker, Walgreens is planning to close yet another pharmacy in the Massachusetts 7th, this time on Warren Street in Roxbury, a community that is 85% Black and Latino. This closure is a part of a larger trend of abandoning low-income communities like the previous closures in Mattapan and Hyde Park, both in the Massachusetts 7th. When a Walgreens leaves a neighborhood, they disrupt the entire community, and they take with them baby formula, diapers, asthma inhalers.
Okay. By the way, I don't disagree with her, right? I mean, she's right on that. It's not good when these stores leave, but you can't force them to stay. Hello, like we're not China or the USSR yet. Thank you very much. Okay, like you can't force them, which is why it is incumbent on leadership in local communities, in states, and at the federal level to ensure the safety of the patrons, the employees, and the store itself. All right? Does this have to be spelled out? Apparently, ladies and gentlemen, it does. Because all these people there, they think you get something for nothing. That's not how the world works, Ms. Presley.
And of course, jobs. These closures are not arbitrary, and they are not innocent. They are life-threatening acts of racial and economic discrimination. That is why I joined with Senator Markey and Warren to demand answers from Walgreens CEO. Why was there no community?
Oh, so that's the reason they're leaving? That's why she thinks they're leaving. Excuse me. That is honestly really, really, really insane. Like, Walgreens, trust me, if they can make money, they're there. They're not required to be there. If you want to require them to be there, you know what? Go out and start a federally funded drugstore. I mean, that's what you're talking about doing, right? I mean, a store can be wherever it wants to be. It shouldn't be required to be there. And if they're not there, they're going to get accused of that? Come on. Like, this is why, the world has gone too far. This is why Claudine Gay doesn't have a job as president of Harvard University anymore. Shocking that she still has any job there, but, apparently the tenure thing carries some weight. Think about that. They don't want a capitalist society. The extremists on the left do not want fairness and a meritocracy. They think that you owe it to them. Doesn't matter If your store is getting robbed every night and you can't actually make a profit, you're not allowed to shut it down, because if you do, you're going to be accused of some pretty heinous stuff. I'm sorry, but ladies and gentlemen, this is not America. I mean, maybe it's Cuba or China, but it's not America. It's really and truly not. And it's frightening that this is sort of the tenor of the day, if you would. But you know what's going to be more frightening? What's going to be more frightening, ladies and gentlemen, is if we see the return of a certain person in a different way. Michelle Obama is very much out there. She's been making the podcast rounds. She's been doing all the things that she needs to do to kind of set herself up. And she's waiting in the wings because the expectation is that Joe Biden is not going to be able to make it to November 2024. That's the expectation. And don't just take my word for it. There was a great report from a strategist over at JP Morgan Chase. He came out with his 2024 predictions, and one of them was Joe Biden's going to drop out of the race for health reasons between now and 2024, November 2024. So if that happens, what do you do? Well, they know Kamala cannot win. I mean, she can't win anything, right? Like, I don't know how she ever won in California, but you know, California, where Gavin Newsom thinks he's doing a good job with the whole shoplifting thing, specifically at Target. I mean, California, forget about it. So they're just an anomaly. Michelle Obama, thus, is coming to the front as a possible contender. Again, they can't run Kamala. They know that. So if you can't run Kamala Harris, you're in a bit of a, well, shall we say, predicament. Because if you throw Gavin in there, well, you know, Gavin's like the white guy. I thought he was like the enemy. He's like the middle-aged white guy. You can't possibly put Gavin Newsom in and expect that you're going to rally your base, ladies and gentlemen, right? So what do? You have to find another black woman. And apparently Oprah doesn't want it. So Michelle, all eyes are on Michelle. And people are like, yeah, because then, you know, hey, we could really be Latin America-esque. You know how they have like these dynasties where like the wives all become president and then the kids all become president. But Obama knows all about that. Apparently he's been thinking something about it. I need to play this clip. It's an amazing clip. Now, if you've seen it, don't spoil it for everyone else. I'm sorry I didn't play this one for you earlier, but this is now part of my repertoire, so you're going to see it a few times between now and 2024. Watch out, especially, by the way, if she does decide to run. Here is Barack Obama in 2020 sitting down with Stephen Colbert on CBS to tell us he'd be okay, you know, under certain circumstances with a third term. Watch. To say he really likes the job. He'd be fine with that. I don't know as I'd be so fine with that. What do you think? I mean, one of the reasons we're in the predicament we're in right now, ladies and gentlemen, is because of this guy. He's the one that divided. He's the one who's encouraging Joe Biden right now. Keep dividing, right? Go down to South Carolina, say a bunch of things, explain that, you know, you can't get, you know, I don't even want to go into it because it's just bad. And I'm sitting there going, I can't believe this. I can't believe. I'm not saying that America's perfect, okay? Yes, there are bad people, there are bad pockets of the country, and there's a lot of prejudice and this, that, and the other that I'm sure still exists today. But you know what, buddy? You got elected twice. You did, twice, to the United States of America as the president. So we're really not that bad. Like, we couldn't possibly be that bad. But you're dividing and you're trying to sell us on something. And I don't think it's good, especially as I look at what's happening right now overseas. When I look at what's happening in the economy, which even with the jobs report, upwards of 300,000, I'm telling you, there was one of the former Biden economic advisors was like, but wait a second, people are working less hours. He was on television today on CNBC saying they're working less hours. You know what that means? They're actually we're not doing as well. These people are being added, right, to the payrolls, but the hours are not as much. So that's not really a good sign. And I would just say, you know, you need 300,000 just to keep pace with population growth. So 300,000 is nothing to write home about. But when you think about Obama versus Donald Trump on the economic front, on the international relations front, I think that there's some obvious stuff that we should be aware of. Let me show you a little clip here from a recent Trump rally.
You had no trouble with North Korea, did you? No trouble whatsoever. Started a little bit rough, right? Rocket Man, little Rocket Man. He said, we've got a red button on my desk, he said. I said, I have a red button also, but mine's bigger, better, and it works. Mine works. And then, no.
Well, the former president finally got around to some campaign promises amid lots of cheering, as you heard. Many
Okay, so that was taken from a Fox air check. They bailed on him pretty fast, and they went to Ron DeSantis back when Ron was still in the game. There seemed to be a lot of desire to get Ron further along. It just didn't happen. So, yeah, we dealt with Little Rocket Man, but you know what? We're not dealing with what we're dealing with now. I'm just going to say that. So that's an important thing to note. Economically speaking, we're not out of the woods. Donald Trump thinks that the market's going up right now because there's has been going up because there's an expectation that he is going to win in 2024. And, how much does that affect the actual, I'll tell you this, it could affect things in that I suspect, people are looking at, if he comes in, what's it going to mean on the inflationary front, et cetera. There's a lot of different components. What's it going to mean in terms of world stabilization, et cetera. But importantly, he believes that the reason the market has been trading higher in recent months, and it was up considerably this year, some 24%. You've got the Dow Jones Industrial Average that ended the day higher today, as well as the S&P ending higher. He thinks there's a reason for that. He sat down with my former colleague over at Fox Business, and I want you to hear this.
All over the place, and the ships are starting to get hit hard. If that happens, you're going to have tremendous spikes in the price of oil. And if you do that, you're going to have big inflation. He's not going to be able to do anything. But it looks to me like he's trying to lower interest rates for the sake of maybe getting people elected. I don't know.
So you think he's political? He's just going to cut rates to help Biden, you say?
I do. I think he's political, yeah.
So, the Biden team can say, well, if things are so bad, how come the stock market's on a roll?
Because they think I'm going to be elected.
That you think the stock market's rallying because people think you're going to be elected?
I do, yeah. If you take a look at Iowa, if you take a look at New Hampshire, the stock market's been going crazy since then and long before then. When I announced I was running, I took the lead early, and then I beat everybody, including Ron DeSantis. I call him DeSantis now. I took the other names.
Mr. President, back to the economy for a second. Would you reappoint Jay Powell?
No, I wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't reappoint him?
No.
Because he missed inflation?
He did miss, but no, I wouldn't be inclined.
Who's your choice for Fed chairman?
I would have a couple of choices. I can't tell you now.
Okay, let me get your take on this central bank digital currency.
All over the place, and the ships are starting to get hit hard.
Okay, so he's talking about basically what's going on in the Middle East, what it's going to mean for oil prices, et cetera. And then he pivots when she asks him about inflation and says, you know what? I don't have a whole lot of use for Jay Powell. That would be the chairman of the Federal Reserve. I got to tell you, this had me thinking because I can't believe how aggressive the Federal Reserve, and Charles would agree with me on this, I can't believe how aggressive they have been and were on just keeping the spigot open. Print. Like, they didn't think that was going to result in inflation. Come on. It was insane. It was insane. And I'm like, why am I the only one who's out there saying, whoa, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem. Eventually, Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary under Clinton, former head of the National Council on Economic Advisors, came out, that would be under Obama, and said, so not exactly, a right conservative person, more on the other side of things. Although, in time, he's looking more and more like he's coming to the right, given his fight with Harvard, et cetera. So Larry Summers was like, hey, you know what? This is going to result in inflation. It's got to be a problem. Well, I was glad to hear somebody else saying it because I couldn't get it. Like, all he did, Jay Powell at the Fed, was keep printing and printing and printing and printing. He was worried about inflation. I'm going to show you an excerpt from one of my interviews with Donald Trump. This is back, I think, in 2018. I was at the White House, and he he made a lot of news with this. We made a lot, certainly my show made a lot of news. He did not like what Jay Powell was doing back then, because Jay was like going on about how worried he was about inflation. I'm like, Jay's really worried about inflation, And there wasn't a ton of evidence of inflation in the economy at the time. I bring this up because think about it. Think about this. Donald Trump's in office. There's not a lot of inflation evidence, but Jay Powell wants to up rates. And then there's a ton of evidence pointing to inflation, and Jay Powell wants to lower rates. No wonder the president wants him gone. I want you to watch.
Straightening out the unfair balances.
What is the end game there with China?
To make a deal.
What would that deal be? I mean, what would that look like?
Look, right now, I've put tariffs on $250 billion worth of products, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's feeling that. There's no inflation or anything in this country. Everyone will say, oh, there's good, but there's no, the inflation's very low.
Oh, Jay Powell might think
No, my biggest
inflation.
threat is the Fed, because the Fed is raising rates too fast, and it's independent, so I don't speak to him, but I'm not happy with what he's doing because it's going too fast, because you looked at the last inflation numbers, they're very low.
But you put him there. I mean, you think about Janet Yellen, and she was so dovish.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I'm not blaming anybody. I put him there. And maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but I put him there.
What if he gets it wrong?
I put a couple of other people there that I'm not so happy with, too. But for the most part, I'm very happy with people. Excuse me?
Well, if he gets it wrong and he misses...
Look, he's being extremely conservative. Let me use a nice term. He's being extremely conservative. The problem is we are just having record numbers. When they try and compare what I'm doing with Obama, Obama was working off zero interest rates. I'm working off real interest rates, almost normalized interest rates. That's a big difference, and my numbers are much better. But you take a look. You can't compare zero. Give me zero interest rates right now, and you take a look at our numbers. It'd be the greatest economy in the history of the world. Nobody would be able to compete with it. We're paying a lot of interest. And I think we're paying too much, to be honest with you, but we're so strong. And he's doing it because the economy is so good, because the economy is so strong. So we'll see how that all works out. I'm not happy straightening out the unfair balances.
What is the end game there with China? Wow.
To make a deal.
So, again, it's a very interesting juxtaposition between then and now. Again, when you think about what the Fed was doing, and he's like, come on, guys, give me some lower interest rates. Imagine how great we do with lower interest rates. He's a real estate guy. He likes lower interest rates because it's like free money, right? And then all of a sudden, he's out, Joe's in. There's all kinds of free money floating around because Joe handed out the third stimulus check to America, and Congress came through with trillions. So there's all this money. We're flush with cash. The economy starts to open up. Everybody's like, woohoo, I'm going to go on a trip. I'm going to go out to dinner. I'm going to go do this. What do you get? Inflation. And what does the Fed do? It keeps the money going. They call it QE, quantitative easing, right? You just keep printing and printing and printing and printing, flooding the money with cash. And they're like, no, we don't think we're going to have an inflation problem. No, nothing to see here. Nothing. Don't worry about it, folks. Don't worry. Well, it was pretty obvious. You're going to have an inflation problem. And why were you so worried about inflation under Donald Trump, but you're not worried at all under Joe Biden? Guys, you actually made this mess for Biden. He has you to thank. Was Jay Powell trying to keep his job? I thought about this. And Maria asked that question, is he political? Is he being political? I'm like, why? Why is he still printing? The economy has reopened. Why would he do this? And it turned out, well, what do you know? His term was up. Jay Powell's term was up, and he was about to probably not get renominated. Because, his boss is over, former boss, Janet Yellen's over at Treasury. She's now become a political animal. These economists that get political, it's really distasteful. Anyway, she becomes political, and I'm sure there was a lot of pressure on him. We need to keep the spigot open. That's what the boss wants, right? Uncle Joe wants you to keep printing. And so he was going to lose his job. I don't know for sure. This is conjecture. I'm a journalist. I need to, all sides here, right? This is conjecture. I think he was concerned he was going to lose his job. There was a lot of pressure on him to keep on printing. He did that. And in doing so, what wound up happening? Inflation. That's why my eggs are $7.99 a dozen in my local grocery store. I mean, I live in the Northeast. I don't know what they cost where you guys are, but it's crazy. Which brings me to, Charles, are you still watching this show? Let's see. Because if you are, I'm sure you'll have something to say on this. Because, we talk about gold. Look, there's a lot of different ways to diversify. And I encourage you to do that. I really do. I mean, diversification is so important in terms of your overall strategy, retirement, et cetera. But Leslie's making the point that, cash is worth nothing. And I get it, right, Leslie? I mean, your cash is literally not going to be worth as much tomorrow. I got to tell you a funny story. One of my kids, he likes the silver coin that Charles sent him for Christmas, and he watches silver and gold prices and markets and this kind of thing because he's got me for a mom. Like, what do you expect? Anyway, so I got him a little bank account at Chase, and he came down the other day. He's like, Mom, my money at Chase, it's not doing anything for me. Because it's just a savings account, right? It's not tied to a CD or something. He's like, I don't understand. Like, it's not doing anything. And he's like, and you got to think about inflation. He's a little guy. And I'm like, you know what? You're so right. We got to fix that. We got to actually fix that and get you into a more diversified holdings, right? You don't want just cash in your bank account from your chores. He's got a little job on Saturday mornings. He goes and deposits all his money right into the bank, and it's not working for him because it's cash. So you do have to diversify, and there's different ways you can do it. One of the great ways, and of course I'm happy to talk about it because Legacy Precious Metals has been a sponsor on this show from the very, very beginning, is through gold. And I've invested in gold for years. It's one of those ways that you sort of help even out some of the market fluctuations, like when things get rough. At least you can look at your gold portfolio. And even when things do well, still, gold often holds its value because when the economy's soaring, well, people are buying gold jewelry, et cetera. So there's still some demand for it. So I think I'm looking at the chat right now because I wanted to open it up to questions. We can chat. Charles, I think he's ready to go to work for you. Yeah, he wants to be a precious metals trader or something. I did say the other day, what about other currencies? But he was like, no, the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is still the place to be. For a while, though. I mean, I think it's going to go down. I mean, we're sort of the prettiest girl at the dance, right, guys? I mean, it's not really, there's not too many lookers at the dance. I mean, we should be. We should be out ahead. The U.S. dollar always should be. But what happens if they continue this printing? A lot of people are saying, oh, we're going to get a rate cut. We're going to get a rate cut before the election. And so that's partly what people are excited about in the market. And so you're seeing kind of this rush into equities in anticipation of this free money situation continuing. I mean, look, we might get it because as you heard, Trump and Maria just discussed, you know what? This is a very political Fed. And as you heard me and former President Donald Trump discuss at the time that Jay Powell was aggressively trying to raise rates and there was this tension, right, going back and forth. He wanted to have something to keep his powder. You keep your powder dry. You want to get off zero, whatever. Trump didn't like that very much. So it's interesting to think about the political dynamics that should not be at play, but may sometimes be at play with these economists in light of the fact that Janet Yellen is now over, ladies and gentlemen, as Treasury Secretary for President Biden. I mean, she's got all kinds of firsts. She's the first woman Treasury Secretary. She's the first woman head of the Federal Reserve. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. It's pretty amazing. They should have put her in. Maybe the Democrat Party can find a way to get her in as she doesn't have the personality for it. What am I saying? She's a typical economist. Typical economist. Hey, one other story I want to get to because Don actually sent me a note on these. I read my messages. So one of you was like, hey, Trish doesn't respond. Trust me, I read them. I may not always respond. I respond to quite a few of them. But Don actually sent a note on the Disney story, which is really interesting. I'm going to just check shares of Disney to see where they closed out the week. Before I forget, I should. Oops. Well, this is computer issues. I'm going to give you the number for Charles. Here I am talking about you. Completely forgot to tell everybody how they can contact you, which is kind of important. Dun-dun-dun. Okay, 1-866-589-0560, 1-866-589-0560. If you're interested in investing in gold, I'm telling you, these are the guys to call. You know Charles, you've gotten to know him here on the show and in the chat, and his team is really lovely, and they're not pushy, and they'll help you navigate this space. I mean, you always make your own decisions, but I'm just going to tell you that, you know, if you're a long-term investor and you want to make sure that your dollar's worth something in the future, well, that's what we want, right? This is a very worthwhile thing to look at. And then, you know, if you want to maybe buy something a little bit cheaper, silver, that's another thing to look at. My son was like, I like the silver, because what is it trading, like $26 an ounce or something? I got to check that. Little cheaper, shall we say, than the alternative gold. But with Charles, you can actually buy portions of gold, so you don't actually have to buy a whole ounce of gold. You can have it in much smaller denominations. You can have the real stuff sent to your house. You can have it at a vault, really, however works best for you. I just wanted to check the price of silver today, guys, because that's definitely one to watch. And it was down about 2%. You know, you saw a shift into equities. I wonder how that's all going to shake out, because not to pick on Fox too much, but I said, well, they were wrong. They retracted it. Actually, I'm just getting a note from David on my team, and he's telling us right now, I guess, that CNN, Fox, Reuters, and Associated Press, I thought it was Associated Press, all reporting U.S. strikes now after confusion. Wow. I mean, you know, it shows you it's very confusing in these times, and I appreciate you guys and your understanding, right, of us being in a live show. Interesting. I would expect that we'll watch the price of gold over the course of the next week, because in moments of strife like this, in moments of uncertainty, in moments of fear, you do tend to see some of those precious metals rally. I mean, I'm a long-term player, so I'm not like in and out of things, but that's very interesting. Oh, I want to get to your comment, TCC. Thank you. On Fox News in a second, but let me just share with you that Fox, AP, and Reuters are now reporting, ladies and gentlemen, that indeed these airstrikes have begun. So it started just as we were coming onto air. I brought this news to you. Fox retracted its report, but I was pretty sure I had seen it elsewhere, and indeed ABC News was reporting it. Politico had reported it. They had heard explosions there in Syria, and it was reported that the U.S. airstrikes had begun at 4:05, so just a short time ago. You were here with me on the air. Fox News issued a correction, which I was just stunned by, because, and ABC News also issued a retraction. Oh my gosh. I mean, this is really frightening that there's so much that we're not clear on, right? And then at 4:12, apparently there was then a confirmation of the attacks. So it's been back and forth and back and forth. You know, I'll just tell you this, any which way you slice it, we're not in a good spot. We played you the sound yesterday of Antony Blinken saying it's the worst possible place we've been at in the Middle East since 1973. You know, I'd just been born. So all I can say is, it's not been this bad since the beginning of my lifetime, and it shouldn't be this bad. And there's no reason it's this bad. It's because we have inept leadership, frankly, that has not done a very good job on the diplomacy front. That is absolutely the truth. And I leave you with that thought as we do head into the weekend. Before, I got to do this for Don. Disney. Don, you want to add anything on Disney? Let me just check shares, because I got distracted by the bombs. You know, it's a fair distraction here as we have this live stream. But if you have anything to say, Don, let us know on Disney. Let me just take a look. I mean, this stock is one that I feel bad about this, because, you know, I used to love Disney as a kid. It was like a pilgrimage. We used to go every year. We'd drive because it was too expensive to fly. And my mom was scared of planes as well. So we would drive, and my grandmother would come, and she'd sit in between my sister and I. And it was the best thing in the world. We just loved it, right? And we'd stay at those Holiday Inns. I think I told you the other day about Lee Habib. He interviewed the founder of Holiday Inn's son on Our American Stories. And it was great because they used to go through the same thing, right? You'd be driving and you couldn't really find a place. Well, by then, we knew about Holiday Inns, so we were always psyched if we could find a Holiday Inn. But we'd pile into the car, we'd go and stay in some place somewhere as we drove down. And it was really magical, really magical. Magic Kingdom, whole bit. $97.13 a share. It's trading down in after hours trading. It was $200 a share back in, January 2021. So not that long ago. What's happened? You know what they say, go woke, go broke. Good news for DeSantis. He won his case. Governor Ron DeSantis, having gone up against Disney, and Disney tried to say, okay, you know what, we're going to get this one thrown out of court. There is no way that this is actually going to fly. I mean, I have mixed feelings about this. I've told you in the past. I kind of feel like, again, I don't like the government getting involved. If the company's going to fail, just let it fail. Let it fail. You know, nobody likes Disney movies anymore. Everybody kind of gets where they're coming from. Unless they actually shift their tone and actually have some respect, I think, for their customer base, they're going to continue to have problems. So the judge did dismiss Disney's lawsuit alleging retaliation by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. So what had happened was Disney was like, oh, this is all political. You're just trying to retaliate, you know, and you can't come up with your own board for the Ruddy Creek thing, etc. And it didn't fly. I'll tell you, you know what? He's a smart guy. I mean, he may have chosen to run to the right of Trump and chosen a bad year to run anybody who was running against Trump, right? I mean, it was just tough position to be in, but he is a smart guy and he has a law background from either Harvard or Yale. One was undergrad, one was law school. So, and he was in JAG, so he practiced as a lawyer in Fallujah after, and he's not a joke on that stuff. So I'm sure he wasn't taking that case on without having at least some backbone and understanding of it. So Disney 0, DeSantis, Florida 1, and the company itself, unless it can really, I think, find its roots, and I don't think it can. I think that the culture now is so politicized everywhere you go, and it's going to get more politicized. That's how we started the show. All those clips from The View, all those clips on MSNBC. Trump is bad, Biden good. And if you dare to think differently, then you are a problem. I mean, don't forget, like The View, that's owned by Disney. That's ABC is Disney. So, I mean, maybe not for long. I do think they're going to sell it off. Poor Whoopi, poor Joy. Might be out of a job when that happens, but hey, good news for the rest of us, right? Don writing, Florida merely took back control. Special districts are privileges, not a gift. Very, very interesting. Well, wow. He also writes, Disney's cases go against DeSantis in Florida are almost toast. Yeah, because they've got other cases and stuff. He's saying they have no case. So we'll see how that all shakes out. I think Ron DeSantis is a pretty serious guy. And on the legal front, Disney, for all their high-priced, fancy lawyers, may not really be able to pull it off. How did this show go so long? I don't know. Maybe because you guys just kept tuning in. We got a good contingency of Reganites here on the show today. Thank you for being here. I want you to have a terrific weekend. We get tons of clips coming your way. And let's all stay safe. I mean, this is very disturbing news out of the Middle East. So keep an eye on it. One more bit of breaking news. See, like I just can't say goodbye. Breaking today. A judge is delaying Donald Trump's federal election trial. You know that big thing that Jack Smith has going on in D.C. that was supposed to start on March 4th? Well, according to a report, that's not going to be happening. At least not on March 4th. Wow. So this is pretty interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, the Trump trial delayed in case stemming from special counsel Jack Smith's January 6th headline. Again, it was supposed to start on the 4th of March. And it was going to be right before all those Super Tuesday contests, right? You had Alabama, Alaska, you had Arkansas, California. I mean, all these big ones, Maine, Maine, where is he going to be on the ballot now in Maine? Colorado, I think they have to keep him on, and then they can later possibly take him off. I don't know how that one's going to work. Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, Vermont are all set to vote on that Super Tuesday. So that's kind of a big deal. And yet they wanted the trial to begin. I mean, you think we're stupid? Like, do you think you just picked that day out of a hat arbitrarily? We're going to choose March 4th? I don't think so. So that's not going to fly. Instead, they're saying that the court will set a new schedule if and when the mandate is returned. Don't forget, remember, Jack Smith sent that mandate up to the Supreme Court, and they're like, okay, no, you got to work this out, like at the appellate level first. Anyway, this is kind of a big deal. So the Federal Appeals Court is actually also considering the claim of the presidential immunity from prosecutions for his actions in office. And according to a story right now, actually on Fox, a ruling from that court is expected, and the Supreme Court will eventually review the issue. So that's the other one, right? That's the one where it was like, the Supreme Court's like, no, we're not going to take this on until you've actually done all the things that you would normally do in the legal system. So I think this is a bit of a win for Trump. I mean, can you imagine like having to prepare for the trial and be at the trial all of these elections are happening? It was sort of peculiar timing, and I suspect very deliberate timing. And I don't necessarily think it was actually timing that would have helped, because the more America sees him up against it, the more they tend to rally around. It's like the whole underdog thing, right? They're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And so I think they're responding with that. So again, breaking right now, Donald Trump's case, it has been postponed. They are not going to start on March 4th, which seemed to be very ambitious timing. They're in Washington, D.C. I'll tell you, if they had really actually wanted to do this the right way, the normal way, wouldn't they have brought these charges like ages ago? Why would you wait until Super Tuesday? I mean, unless it was political. You're not doing yourself any favors with that, Jackie. I'm just saying, no favors on that one. It's kind of obvious. And people they're over it, right? Huge win. Yeah, it won't proceed now for months. I mean, really. I mean, I'm amazed at everything that's coming in, one after another. And yet we learned yesterday, I shared this with you. By the way, if you're just joining us, please make sure to subscribe. Thank you, Don. And thank you. I see that so many of you, not just Don actually, are saying, hey, like Abel, thank you for that. Hit the like button, share, all that good stuff. Yes, and make sure that you subscribe and that you get the bell, because then you'll know when I'm live. We're trying to get like a time schedule. It's not really happening, but hey, we're working on it. Work in progress. Anyway, I do think that this is going to be such an incredibly important time, an incredibly important year. We told you yesterday about the Disney ABC producer that was hired by the Democrats to put on a show for January 6th. And this is the PBS documentary that just came out on Frontline. Now, we all knew that, and we've talked about it, and people are like, well, what's new about this? And I'll tell you what's new. They're flat out admitting it. They're patting themselves on the back. They're so happy that they were able to get the ABC. I know him, actually, because he used to run GMA, Good Morning America. And before I went to Bloomberg, GMA tried to hire me. And so I met him, and very, nice guy, has an accent. So I think he's British, maybe. And, but, I'm sure he has his viewpoint. Like everybody in the media has their viewpoint. I was so discouraged when I learned that early on. I mean, I was just sort of always blown away by the very definitive, very left viewpoint of those in establishment media. It is just what it is. And I don't know if it came out of Nixon and everything. And so everybody, like in the Vietnam era, I don't know why, but everybody who's in the media is a total lefty. So he teamed up with the Democrats, and they put on the show, and they used all the Nancy Pelosi's daughter's footage, Alexandra Pelosi. And I just look at it and say, like, could we not have had a less biased source of information? She sold it or gave it, I don't know, to CNN. They then billed it as their exclusive So it didn't say Alexandra Pelosi's video. It said CNN exclusive. How misleading is that? And then they used that video, and the Disney ABC guy comes along and packages it up, and boom, that's what you see on your television screen. And they talked about in this documentary, and this is why I think it's important, and it's brand new. They're like, oh, we needed to really make people interested in this. So, he had this vision. We had this vision of being like a mini-series drama that people are going to tune into every night. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we are, okay? Like, the spin machine is working overtime. So it is not a coincidence that they were looking at January 6th, ladies and gentlemen. Forgive me. March 4th, ladies and gentlemen. It is not a coincidence. March 4th, right when Super Tuesday comes, because they thought that this might be damaging to him. It just causes everybody to think twice, right? Jean Carroll, I agree with you, Leslie. I'm just looking over at these notes. She's not going to get much money for sure. It's going to be appealed. I mean, that's very rare. It's rare that any of these people ever do get a whole lot of money on the appeal. Like, it makes a big splashy headline. Everybody's like, rah, rah, rah. She went and had a party in New York. A lot of members of the media were invited. She went and did her Rachel Maddow interview and a whole bunch of other interviews and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, is she actually going to get money? Certainly not $83 million for sure. I mean, I don't even think, didn't Stormy have to like pay money or something? I don't even want to go there, but you get the point. You get the point. So there's a lot going on, and I'm here every day for you. And I love that you're here for me. And we are going to make this together work. And it's just critical that we pay attention to the subjects and issues that really do matter right now. And that includes what's happening overseas in the Middle East. It includes our economy here at home. It includes our border here at home. And it includes some of the social wackiness that, frankly, I think has to get put back into line. And the only way to do that is really to say, you know what, it's not okay to villainize half the country. There are 75 million Americans that voted for Donald Trump, and they're good people. And conservatives in general are very good people. And you cannot just vilify the other side. It's not how we do things. It's not, and it never should be. So I leave you with this. Think over the weekend about the vice president spot. Remember, we need to bridge the gap. Okay, like this is the reality. We have to bring in all the women that feel disenfranchised. And I don't think he's really going to be the one to do it. So let's recognize that and know the role and the purpose that Mike Pence served in the 2016 election was to help convince evangelicals that this was the person they should vote for. And so that's going to be the role of whoever the vice president is. They can't overshadow the president. They've got to have a good working relationship. They've got to be loyal. By the way, Mike Pence was really loyal. I mean, throughout until the end, so that you need the loyalty. You need somebody who's not going to take all the oxygen out of the room. You need a woman, and that woman has to resonate with other women. They have to like her. So that's your homework project, okay? And we can reconvene on Monday. I'm going to get some more intel from some sources, but this is out there, right? Like, I mean, they recognize this. So let's help them however we can. We're helping the country here. We need to make sure that women understand they are valued. We need to make sure that they connect with this administration. And so that's our homework. Listen, have a great weekend. Be on the lookout for lots of clips over the weekend, and we'll talk on Monday. Thank you.